All right, guys, we're going to talk about how to figure out the area of an equilateral triangle. Now, remember, an equilateral triangle means that all the sides are the same. So if I said that this was 8 inches, that means this side is 8 inches and this side is 8 inches. They're all equilateral. And also remember, equilateral also means equiangular. All angles are the same, and quite frankly, remember we said all the angles are 60 degrees because 180 divided by 3 was 60 degrees. So they were all the same. Now, if I want to figure out the area of a triangle based off our last thing, it's the area is the base times the height divided by 2. It's half of the area of a square or a rectangle. So area of a square or a rectangle is base times height. Triangle is half of that, so you have to do base times height divided by 2. We have the base. The base is 8 inches. That's fine. Our issue is the height. We do not have the height. The height is not 8 inches. Remember, height needs to be perpendicular to the ground. When you go to the doctor and they say, hey, we want to measure your height, they ask you to stand up straight. You are perpendicular to the ground. You're not slanted like these sides are. So the height, also known as the altitude, is this part right here. This is your height. Now, when it comes to an equilateral triangle, the height is two things. It is the perpendicular bisector. That means it cuts this side in half, and it's perpendicular. It's also the angle bisector. It actually cuts this angle in half. So what happens is we get a right triangle here. I now know that this half, if the whole base was 8 inches, was half of 8. This is 4 inches. And now I'm missing my height. Now, if you look at half of this triangle, what does it make? It makes a right triangle. And how do we figure out the missing side piece of a right triangle? It's Pythagorean theorem. So now we are combining things that we have now learned all together. So Pythagorean theorem, remember, is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And remember, c is always the hypotenuse, and in our case here, there's my hypotenuse for this half of this triangle, and that's 8. So that's 8 squared. 4 is one of my legs. It doesn't matter if I put it in A or B, I'm just going to put it there. Plus height is my other leg. That's the one I have to figure out, is h squared. So, putting this together, I still don't know h squared. Plus 4 squared is 16 equals 64. Got to get h by itself. I'm going to subtract 16 on both sides. So, make sure I have my calculator with me. 64 minus 16 is 48. So that means h squared equals 48. But I don't want to know h squared. I want to know h. So I've got to take the square root. Do that on my calculator, and that is 6.92. So h is 6.92. I'm not done. Remember, our problem asks to figure out the area of the equilateral triangle. So now I'm going back over here. So area equals base. We knew the base. The base of the triangle is that right there, is 8 times my height. I now just figured out my height. It's 6.92 divided by 2. Plug that in my calculator. And I get 27.68 inches squared. And that is the area of an equilateral triangle. So we have to do a little bit more work here. We have to figure out our height of this triangle using Pythagorean theorem. Plug in that height into my formula with my base, and there we go. All right, let's do another one. Let's say I've got this equilateral triangle, and it is, I'm just going to move this up a bit. There we go. I don't know. We'll do 10 feet. So now remember, if I already know one side is 10 feet, it's an equilateral triangle, I know that all the sides are 10 feet. And again, area is base times height divided by 2. Again, what don't we have? We don't have our height. So I got to create my height, and my height of an equilateral triangle is always the perpendicular bisector. So here it's perpendicular, and it bisects my base. So half of 10 is 5. And this is the height we got to solve. And now it makes a right triangle right here. And how do I find the missing side of a right triangle? As I use good old Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. C is always our hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the side across from the right angle. So that's the 10 feet. So that's 10 squared equals A and B are the legs. The legs are those are next to that angle, so I don't know my h, so it's going to be h squared plus 5 squared. And now I got to figure out my height. So h squared, I still don't know that, plus 5 squared is 25 equaling 10 squared is 100. Subtract 25 on both sides. I've got h squared equaling 75. I don't want to know h squared, I want to know h, so I got to take the square root. And in my calculator, I take the square root of 75, and I get 8.66. Now, if you do not have a calculator at home and you're using your cell phone, I know specifically for iPhone, if you turn your phone to the, if you turn off your rotation lock, and you turn your iPhone to the side, you should see the square root, and I think you have to do 75 first, and then press the square root button, and then that's how you're going to get 8.66, okay? If you have an LG or a Samsung phone, I know it's on there. You guys are just going to have to figure it out. Maybe Google how to use the calculator on your phone, something like that. All right, so now, didn't finish answering the question. The question asked for area. So area is base. Base we already know is 10 times our height. That's what we just found, 8.66 divided by 2. I plug that all in my calculator. 10 times 8.66. Then I divide it by 2. My area is 43.3. And my unit is feet squared. And there you go. Let me do one more example with you. If you need more help, please email me or make a comment on the Google Classroom, and I can do more examples, or we can try to do a Google Meet sometime. All right. Let's see. How about we do, what's a good number? This is where I miss you guys, where you guys shout out numbers and help me out. Let's do 12. No, you know what? We're going to do 15. So let's say this is 15 centimeters. Again, I've told you they're an equilateral triangle, so that means all 3 sides are 15 centimeters. And I want you guys to find the area of this equilateral triangle. And area is base times height divided by 2 of every triangle. What are we missing in this problem? We're missing the altitude or the height of the triangle. So again, I make my little dotted line there that represents my height. And it's perpendicular to the base, and it's a bisector, so it cuts that base in half. So 15, half of 15 is 7.5 centimeters. And now I've got my right triangle here where I can use Pythagorean theorem to solve it. So Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C squared, I go across the right angle, that's going to be 15. So that's 15 squared equals. A and B are my legs, which are h squared and 7.5 squared. All right. Don't know h squared, so that stays h squared. Plus 7.5 squared, I don't know that one. So I'm going to have to put that in my calculator as either 7.5 to the second power or 7.5 times 7.5, right? And I get 56.25 equals 15 squared. We should know 15 squared. That's one of those I've told you guys before in the past that you should know up to, is 225. All right. Subtract 56.25 from both sides because we're trying to solve for the height. That crosses out. H squared equals, so 225 minus 56. And I get 168.75. Again, I don't want to know h squared. I want to know h, so I got to take the square root. And the square root of that answer is going to be 12.99. Now, go back and finish our question. So, area equals, base is 15. Height, we just found out, was 12.99 divided by 2. Plug that all in our calculator. And you get 97.425. What are my units? Centimeters squared. And there we go. Hope you guys are all doing well. See you later.